Mr. Menon, do you concur with the thought that both these things perhaps are organic in nature, and if the road comes, the sensibility will also come?
Yeah, I think, I mean, one of the things, I'd like to obviously congratulate the government on, putting together this infrastructure, these good roads that give you connectivity. And I'm not very familiar with Delhi, being based out of Bangalore, but I think the problems are very similar when it comes to it. This is obviously a program that got started, way back when, especially intercity connectivity has been phenomenal. In fact, the growth over the past 25 years has been extremely good. And like Gautam, I do travel very often to Kerala and to other neighboring states, and I do find that the infrastructure continues to improve. Now, I think the bigger challenge we have, and I think all the speakers have kind of addressed that, is basically urban connectivity and urban issues, especially all of these large metros today that have seen a huge influx of people from other parts of the world flocking there for various reasons. Bangalore because of IT, probably Delhi because of manufacturing, all of that. And a road is only as good as the network that it serves. In fact, I've been professing over here to the government over here saying that let's set a target. Very often we look at the average speed in Bangalore. If you look at it, an origin destination study will let you know that an average speed is in the range of 10 to 12 kilometers at best. Per hour, so it's pathetic to believe that you can only traverse that. In certain cases, especially in the electronic, in the IT corridors, it takes sometimes for 3 kilometers it takes 2 hours, and people have been highlighting it. So I think the network has to be looked at, and there are enough of modeling softwares today to look at the network and say where are these pain points. I see it, especially from here in Bangalore, very often. Lane continuity, lane balance, the quality of the road itself. And I think Mr. Sudhir Krishna highlighted drainage. Drainage is sometimes non-existent on our roads. And I design infrastructure for all the big developers. In fact, Indirapuram, there's a prestige city, and I'm doing the infrastructure there. Drainage is a key concern, even in a 50 to 60 acre development. So when you start looking at larger projects like this, you have to address drainage. And I don't think they do it. In my 22 years of experience working in the US, especially in Texas, we do get significant storms, and we have to prepare for that, optimize the networks and do that. So I think it's a bunch of different parameters that have to be this thing. I grew up in Bangalore, and I still remember in the 80s, I learned how to ride a bike. And, MG Road over here was a no tolerance zone, zero tolerance zone. And I still remember getting a ticket. My dad was sitting behind me, getting a ticket for not putting my indicator and changing lanes. Now that ingrained in me the fact that I have to have lane discipline. So I think, it's a combination of factors. Another big problem that we have is these turn lanes. We don't have storage bays in any of our urban infrastructure. So turns are made off of the main lane, and that compromises everything. So at intersections, it's important to study that and make sure that you have, storage bays. So there are a lot of little things that go into actual urban design and urban transportation, which I don't necessarily believe is happening. And of course, complicated, especially urban infrastructure, with the different layers of government that you have. So you have the central government, you have the state government, then you have, the local governments, which are probably the most corrupt, and you end up with infrastructure that is absolutely worthless. Solid waste management is a huge problem almost in every city. We've polluted all of our waterways, and this is what affects the quality of life. What is the quality of life? A good commute time to wherever you want to go. Your neighborhood, is it clean enough? Is the sanitation good? And today, unfortunately, India has grown at such a rapid pace that you've created a huge low-income group. And if we don't address that, like I think Sudhir Krishna said that, anybody and everybody is given a license today. If you don't teach them the rules of driving and, of course, enforce it, because I think India is a country where enforcement is absolutely at zero. I find people driving up the wrong way. So, but that's anyway a point for another discussion. But the bottom line is it's a bunch of different things that have to come together. Again, I think every successive government is trying, but I don't think they're putting their entire effort into it. In fact, just this morning, a bunch of IT guys from one part of Bangalore got together and brought some wet mix macadam and threw it on the road, because for the past 6 months, there's been absolutely no road, which means traffic comes down to a standstill, and their commute times are 2 and 3 hours. It's ridiculous. So I think, I wish We have a renewal of the urban renewal mission. It was, of course, called the Jawaharlal Nehru Urban Renewal Mission. It can be called anything as you want it in current terms, but I think we really need to focus on how we can actually get a funding mechanism, because I know that most of these highways are built through a public-private partnership. And very often it's a private entity that's building it. They've obviously, funded it, and they collect tolls and they're able to pay for it. But what about urban infrastructure? You cannot toll urban infrastructure. So you have to figure out a way, an allocation, whether it's at the union, state, or local level. You have to figure out an allocation and prioritize it. Because I think today the biggest concern for almost any individual in any of the metros is traffic. We give excuses as to why we are late, but it's obviously traffic. And so I think the other big concern is pollution. When traffic is held up and you have, 5 and 10 kilometer per hour speeds, you're polluting the environment. So you have to, in fact, in Bangalore, I've suggested that we increase the speed from 8 to 10 kilometers to at least 40 kilometers per hour, which means an origin destination trip has to be at 40 kilometers per hour, which means, that's the goal that we need to set. And then work on our arterials, work on our collector distributors, work on our urban streets, and work on our freeway systems, which are obviously access control to be able to achieve that. Obviously, one last point that I want to make is that NHAI's jurisdiction unfortunately ends at the tip of most cities, and we have the same problem here. NH4 ends at Hebbal, and beyond that it's all surface streets, and they've put these ring roads, but these ring roads are not access controlled, which means you have people going up the wrong way, you have intersections, you do not have high-speed ramps. And I think these are all major concerns, especially if you look at an origin destination. You speed up on the freeways, you may lose some time on urban streets, but that's what an origin destination does. And if we can increase that and say, 40 kilometers is what we're going to achieve, I think we'll all be better served.